In today's episode,
Luck. Understand Randomness to Improve Your Odds by Victor Odasnac.
We usually think of success like walking up to this giant cosmic slot machine.
Right.
You pull the heavy metal lever and the wheels spin in a blur and you just kind of hold your breath, right? Praying it lands on the jackpot.
Yeah, and if it doesn't, you just shrug and walk away.
Exactly. But if it does, you're set for life.
And, when someone else hits that jackpot, the human reflex is to just assume the machine liked them better.
Oh, totally.
We look at them holding the oversized check and decide, well, they were chosen by some invisible hand.
We think it's just pure, unadulterated fate. But today, we are going behind the machine. Welcome to the deep dive.
Glad to be here.
We have a fantastic mission for you today. We are cracking the code on how to become harder for luck to ignore. The goal is to give you a shortcut to the hidden mechanics of chance.
It's going to be a fun one.
Yeah. We're looking at this brilliant manuscript by Victor Odasnac. It's called Luck. Understand Randomness to Improve Your Odds. And we also have these two incredibly insightful visual diagrams he uses to map out what he calls the luck dial.
The diagrams are really helpful, yeah.
They are. We are going to completely dismantle the myth of the lucky bastard and replace it with practical science. Because luck isn't some mystical force or a cosmic lottery. It's actually a condition you can engineer.
Yeah, and before we can build our own luck, we have to systematically unlearn our lazy definitions of why other people succeed.
Right.
Odasnac makes this powerful point early on that distance actually edits success.
Distance edits success. I like that.
Yeah, like when we look at someone who made it to the top of their field, we only see the shiny outcome.
Yeah.
Right? We see the promotion or the huge company exit, the best-selling book.
The final product.
Exactly. We consume the final product. We never see the graveyard of invisible attempts.
Right, the decades of just grinding behind closed doors.
We don't see the rejected drafts, the sleepless nights, the, survivable disasters. We just look at the finished monument and say, oh, lucky bastard.
Right.
And that cognitive shortcut leads directly into what Odasnac calls the survivor story trap.
Oh, the Steve Jobs thing.
Yes. A classic example is looking at Bill Gates or Steve Jobs dropping out of college. People constantly treat their dropout status as some magic, replicable lesson for building a billion-dollar empire.
Like, I dropped out, so I'm the next Steve Jobs.
Exactly. And Odasnac calls treating that as a lesson a statistical crime scene with a motivational poster taped over it.
That is such a good line because it feeds into this incredibly dangerous inspirational survivor bias. I mean, it's like interviewing the winner of the state lottery, finding out they bought their winning ticket on a Tuesday while wearing a red shirt,
Right.
and then writing a best-selling business book telling everyone that red shirts on Tuesdays are the secret to generational wealth.
Exactly.
It completely erases the graveyard of losers who also wore red shirts on Tuesday. We ignore the silent majority because, well, they don't make for a good magazine cover.
And that dynamic completely erases the context, right?
Yeah.
The timing, the access, the specific environment that person operated in. If we just say they were lucky or we focus on the red shirt, it protects our ego.
Yeah.
It tells us we don't need to investigate our own failures too deeply because the universe just didn't select us this time. It's a very comfortable lie.
Okay, let's unpack this. If success isn't just a magical lottery, and if saying they were lucky is just, ego protection, what is the actual mechanism? How do we map what is actually happening?
Well, this leads us directly to the visual models from the sources.
Yeah.
They redefine luck as a mechanical system.
Right, the first image, the luck dial.
Yeah. So picture a gauge, almost like a speedometer on a dashboard. It swings unpredictably from bad on the far left to good on the far right.
Okay.
And right in the center, driving that needle, is a freely oscillating dial labeled randomness.
And that oscillation represents the physics of the universe. isn't it?
Exactly. The physical realities we just can't measure. Odasnac argues that even a coin flip isn't fate. It's physics.
Right.
It's the angle of your thumb, the air resistance, the bounce off the table, the weight of the metal. We just use the word luck as an emotional label for randomness. We don't have the processing power to calculate in real time.
And he redefines the word itself, which is the core of this whole framework.
Yes.
Perceived randomness is actually a lack of understanding, control, or skill. That's L-U-C-K, with a lowercase s and a capital K doing some serious unpaid labor to make the acronym work.
What's fascinating here is how this model prevents us from surrendering our agency too early.
So?
Well, look at the second visual in the source material. It's called reducing randomness. It shows that exact same dial. But now, there are heavy weights labeled understanding, control, and skill hung on the mechanism.
Okay, so you're weighing down the needle.
Right. These weights physically pull the randomness down, shifting the luck dial favorably toward the good side. By distinguishing between pure randomness, uncertainty, and hidden variables, we completely change our response to failure.
I see.
Like if you get rejected for a job, your instinct is to say bad luck. But if you realize it was actually a lack of understanding, like maybe you simply didn't know the company was already hiring internally, it stops being a mystical rejection.
Yeah, it becomes a hidden variable you can look out for next time. So if you picture randomness as this wildly spinning needle on your dashboard, Odasnac's LUCK framework is basically a set of 3 anchors you toss out to slow that needle down and drag it into the green.
Exactly.
So randomness is like a wild weather system, and these 3 weights, understanding, control, and skill, are the sandbags that keep your house from blowing away.
I love that analogy. You are adding friction to the chaos.
Yeah.
But the catch is, our own internal narratives can actually sever the ropes holding those sandbags. Odasnac warns heavily against adopting "I am unlucky" as an identity.
Right, because then you just give up.
Yeah, he says an event passes through you, but an identity moves in, unpacks its boxes, and starts rearranging the furniture.
Wow.
Adopting that identity leads directly to learned helplessness and a narrowed locus of control. He shares this fascinating anecdote about living in Valencia, Spain.
The parking story.
Yeah. So on Friday nights, he would circle the university district for over an hour looking for parking. And when he adopted the identity of being unlucky, he got frustrated.
Naturally.
His physical attention actually narrowed. He gripped the steering wheel, and he would drive right past open spots.
Just completely missed them.
Right. But on nights he arrived feeling lucky, his perception widened, he stayed relaxed, his gaze softened, and he would immediately spot someone walking to their car and grab this spot before anyone else even noticed.
Okay, wait, I struggle with this part.
Okay.
Yeah, we are dancing dangerously close to toxic positivity here, right? Like, the idea that if I just smile and think lucky thoughts, a VIP parking spot opens up. I mean, I know people who are incredibly optimistic, they visualize success every day, and they still get laid off or face terrible hardship. How does Odasnac separate this widened perception from just, mystical manifestation?
That's a great question, and Odasnac is very careful to draw that line. It's not mystical in the slightest. It's purely perceptual and neurological. Optimism doesn't change the universe. It keeps you looking. If you fundamentally believe you're unlucky, your brain conserves energy by just stopping the search for solutions. Optimism increases your surface area for opportunity. It's about maintaining a widened locus of control so you don't miss the data that's right in front of you.
So think about your own day-to-day life. It is the difference between fake control and real control.
Yes.
Like, fake control is constantly refreshing your email inbox to see if a client replied, or agonizing over what people think of you. That feels like you're doing something, but Odasnac points out that's just anxiety masquerading as preparation.
Exactly. It's wasted energy.
Right. And real control is decision architecture. It's the boring structural buffers, setting up an automatic savings transfer so you don't have to rely on willpower.
Yeah.
Or putting your phone in another room so you can focus on deep work. It's about designing an environment where the good choice is the default, rather than trying to force the universe to bend to your mood.
And he illustrates this perfectly with the famous story of Jim Carrey writing himself a $10 million check for acting services rendered years before he was a star.
Oh yeah, the manifestation crowd loves that story.
They do. Manifestation culture loves to point to this and say, look, the cosmos processed his paperwork because he visualized it.
Right.
But Odasnac argues it wasn't cosmic manifestation at all. It was imagination organizing behavior.
Organizing behavior.
Yeah. Carrying that check in his wallet aimed his attention. It kept his locus of control wide, and it kept him working on his craft long enough to meet a real mathematical opening in the industry.
Okay, but how do we actually evaluate our choices when the outcomes are still totally uncertain? Because if you are putting in the work and organizing your behavior, but the results just haven't shown up yet, how do you know you're doing the right thing?
Well, Odasnac argues we have to separate the process from the outcome. Probability is not destiny. High probability doesn't mean guaranteed, and low probability doesn't mean impossible. Human beings naturally judge their decisions entirely by the final result, which is a massive cognitive mistake known as outcome bias.
Which brings us to the crosswalk analogy.
Oh, I love this one.
It breaks this down brilliantly.
Yeah.
Picture two people crossing a busy street. One person looks both ways, waits for the crosswalk sign, and walks carefully.
Okay.
The other person closes their eyes, puts on headphones, and just sprints blindly into traffic.
Sounds terrifying.
Yeah. But by some miracle, both of them survive and make it to the other side.
Same exact outcome, but wildly different decision quality.
Exactly. And if you evaluate their choices based purely on the outcome, you would conclude that sprinting blindfolded is a perfectly valid way to cross the street.
Right, which is absurd.
It is. But then imagine the careful person does everything right, steps into the crosswalk legally, and gets hit by someone running a red light.
Terrible.
It's a terrible outcome. But it was still a significantly better decision than sprinting blindfolded.
And that discrepancy between decision quality and the actual result is what Odasnac calls variance. Variance is the weather of outcomes.
The weather of outcomes.
Yes, some days it rains on the prepared, and some days the sun shines on the foolish. The problem is, you can't judge the entire climate by looking out the window one single time.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Think of it like playing a hand of poker.
Okay.
You can play the odds perfectly, make every mathematically correct move, and still lose all your chips to a reckless beginner who just goes all in on a terrible hand and gets lucky on the river card.
Oh, that is so frustrating.
It is. Human psychology hates that. We want the correct action to guarantee the correct result. But you cannot let one bad hand change your entire strategy. Because if you do, you abandon your anchors and you start playing like the reckless beginner.
And that ability to absorb variance without changing your strategy is exactly why experts often look so lucky.
Really?
Yeah. What an amateur calls instinct or a lucky guess is actually advanced pattern recognition. It's practice that has become fast.
Practice that has become fast.
Exactly. Experts compress uncertainty by turning vague noise into meaningful signals. Because they have seen the poker hand thousands of times, they see the shape of the risk or the opening in the market before the beginner even knows what game is being played.
So if that is the goal, how do we practically apply these better decisions to our own lives?
Well, Odasnac says we have to build portable luck, which is his term for skills.
Skills.
Money can vanish, a job title can disappear overnight in a corporate restructuring, but a skill travels with you. It makes you constantly break ready.
Break ready. I like that.
And just as importantly, opportunity has an address. Proximity matters. You have to physically or digitally move to where the opportunity actually lives.
You can't just wait in your room.
No? You could be the most skilled person in the world, but if you sit in isolation, you have no surface area for serendipity.
And Odasnac actually lived this. His IBM interview story is honestly a masterclass in these hidden variables colliding.
It really is.
On the surface, it looks like a ridiculous stroke of dumb luck. So he applies for an IBM internship in Spain and gets rejected. Just complete silence.
Ghosted.
Yeah. And following that, he fails a military entry exam, which forces his mandatory military service to be pushed into the Air Force the following year.
Which is a sequence of events most people would categorize as purely bad luck, an unmitigated disaster for his early career.
But that delay perfectly altered his timeline.
Right.
Right as he finished his service, the Spanish government passed a controversial new hiring law aimed at young graduates, and that prompted IBM to suddenly open up a wave of new positions, so he finally gets an interview.
Okay.
Now, the interviewer, a guy named Louis, happened to have a strong sales background. Because Odasnac had spent his college years doing the brutal, grinding work of selling encyclopedias door to door, he knew exactly how to speak the language of customer needs.
He had that portable luck.
Yes. He wasn't just an engineer. He was an engineer who understood sales.
And then the technical question comes up, which is where the preparation truly meets the moment.
Right. Luis asks him about his technical interests, and Odasnac casually drops the word networking.
Just casually.
Yeah. Now, he didn't even fully grasp how big the concept of networking was about to become. He had literally just read the word in an iEngineering magazine because he was curious and keeping his perception wide.
Widened locus of control.
Exactly. But the moment he says networking, Louis stops the interview, he picks up the phone, calls his boss, and says, "I'm hiring this guy right now, bypass the testing."
Incredible.
And the absolute kicker to this whole story, when Luis looked up Odasnac's file to finalize the hire, he saw that Odasnac had actually passed all the aptitude tests during that failed internship application years ago.
Wait, really?
Yes. He wasn't rejected for lack of skill. IBM had just cut the program budget that year.
Oh, wow. If we connect this to the bigger picture,
Yeah.
that story is the ultimate proof that serendipity requires surface area.
Absolutely.
To the outside observer, it looked like pure luck. He walked in and said a magic word, but it was actually a massive stack of tiny engineered advantages.
Yeah.
The failed military exam altering his timeline. The grueling encyclopedia sales giving him the vocabulary. Reading the magazine out of sheer curiosity. Passing the hidden tests years prior. Unplanned does not mean uninfluenced.
Right.
He had the portable skill, he put himself in proximity to the opportunity, and he maintained the preparation.
We've built this incredibly empowering framework to catch luck, but, we have to keep the deep dive honest.
Of course.
Because sometimes, despite hanging all those heavy anchors of understanding, control, and skill on your dial, chaos just wins anyway.
It does. And Odasnac is very firm on this point.
Yeah.
Agency is not omnipotence.
Yeah.
You can do everything right.
Yeah.
You can practice perfect decision architecture,
Yeah.
and you can still get sick or face a global economic collapse or get hit by that car running the red light.
Right.
He offers a sharp critique of modern hustle culture's concept of the body veto. It's this toxic idea that if you just want it badly enough, you can outwork any physical or circumstantial obstacle.
Just push through the pain.
Exactly. He contrasts Rafa Nadal, whose legendary greatness came at the cost of massive chronic physical injury, with Andre Agassi.
Oh, Agassi's memoir is wild.
It reveals he was essentially suffering through a sport he actively hated just to fulfill an identity.
Because hard work is not inherently noble just because it's hard. Sometimes it is just self-destruction with an audience clapping for you.
That's beautifully put. To survive the reality of chaos, you must map your life into 3 distinct zones: what I control, what I influence, and what I must accept.
Accept.
Confusing those zones is the source of endless misery.
So, what does this all mean? It means we have to push back hard on that awful, pervasive cliché, everything happens for a reason.
Yes.
I love that the manuscript calls this out directly. Sometimes the lesson you learn from a tragedy is just significantly smaller than the loss you suffered.
Absolutely.
We shouldn't romanticize suffering or pretend a random disaster was actually a gift just to make the chaos feel more organized and palatable.
This raises an important question.
Yeah.
How do we practice self-mercy within this framework?
Self-mercy.
Yeah, because if we know we can engineer our luck, the danger is using the LUCK framework to turn every single instance of bad luck into a personal failure of optimization.
Like blaming yourself for a thunderstorm.
Exactly. Sane agency means improving your odds without viciously blaming yourself when the odds inevitably fail. And that is where resilience comes in. Resilience isn't a magical personality trait you were born with. It is the forgotten form of luck.
Because recovery is a tangible skill. Sleep hygiene, emotional regulation, building financial buffers, those are designed recovery tools.
Yes.
They keep you from making a temporary emotion a permanent decision. They keep you in the game when variance hits you hard.
The people we eventually look at and label as lucky are very often just the ones who survived their bad luck long enough for the probabilities to finally turn in their favor.
They just stood at the table.
Right. They absorb the variance without quitting.
So, bringing this all back to you, we started this deep dive talking about that cosmic slot machine. You don't control the hand you were dealt in life, and you certainly don't control the spin of the wheels.
No.
But you are not helpless. You can hang the heavy anchors of understanding, control, and skill on your dial. You can physically pull randomness in your favor.
You just have to stay in the game, manage your surface area for serendipity, and wait for probability to do its work.
And that brings us to Odasnac's daily question, which I want to leave you with. What can I do today that slightly improves my odds tomorrow?
Such a great question.
I want to challenge you directly. Think about one tiny, boring advantage you can build today. Maybe it's sending a single message to build your network, setting up a small financial buffer, learning one new concept outside your field, or, even just taking a deliberate moment of rest so you are sharp for tomorrow.
Yeah.
You don't do it because it guarantees a miracle tomorrow. You do it because it ensures that when randomness finally knocks, you are the one equipped to answer the door.
It's about being ready for the knock.
But I want to leave you with one final thought to mull over. If luck is truly just a measure of our hidden variables, as Odasnac suggests, what if the unluckiest thing that ever happened to you was actually just the universe revealing a blind spot you hadn't measured yet?
Something to think about.
Until next time, keep rewiring the machine.